Well, we should probably tell our listeners that
FCC.gov.
We're all here in wearing our shy gear because Syl and I are on location in Chicago. I'm gonna just pop a little view. Look at that. Look at that. And we are headed to the Bears game, kickoff at 3:25, and we're playing your team.
We are. Is it Ted's team? He really doesn't like when we say that.
I know. But I like to.
Look at, he's got his Chicago. Come on.
He's wearing his Chicago. Yeah.
You're in the club.
Yeah. It's fun.
Who do you root?
I went to high school with you, Kristen. Let's not forget.
Theodore.
I know, but you're not here. You're just not here with us.
No.
And that
it's family, it's like in 12 years. This will be great in 12 years.
In 12 years. All right. Well, we will.
When Maryland graduates, it's like, we're going to have a free for all.
Yeah. And we'll most
all these visits and trips.
How many followers do you think we'll have for the Hollow Bunny podcast in 12 years?
1,463,000.
Oh my God. We'll probably have our own production company.
The Hollow Bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
So, hey, greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I'm Kristen Ziman, and I'm here with my sharp and spirited co-host. She is my teammate on this field of leadership. And what do you think about that? Teammate on this field. Do you see what I'm doing here?
Wow, you are bringing
Sporty
right
ball.
into sporty ball. Yes, and we are in the same location, sitting side by side in this magnificent place called Chicago.
Chi-Town. We are in Chi-Town, baby.
We are.
And we're going to the 3:25 Bears game against Dallas. And we're going to paint our bodies.
We are. We haven't done that yet because we just thought it might get a little sticky.
Well, we're going to say all the curse words on here.
Yes.
But we aren't going to show any nudity.
No, we're not.
No, that's where we draw the line.
It would be obscene. It would be titillating.
It will be. It would be titillating.
It would be titillating, exciting.
We're not going to do it.
We're not going to do it. We're just going to keep people hanging.
Yeah. Or maybe for those listening, I see what you did there. Or maybe for those listening, maybe we are sitting here with just body paint on. You don't know. This is a podcast.
It is a podcast. People listen. But then again, people might just watch.
They may watch us. Okay. Either way.
So
Let's
Kristen,
talk.
There's so much happening in the world, and there are meaningful ways for us to dive into this stuff. And we always find a way to say, okay, what do you think about? Right. And then we go out, we ponder, we chew on it, we marinate, and then we might go out into the environment and research some stuff. And then we have, I think, a necessity to bring this stuff to our listeners to say, okay, hey, folks that are in leadership, you might want to give this some consideration, right?
Absolutely.
And so today's bringing us into this interesting social space.
It is. And you may wonder, well, what does this have to do with leadership? And we're talking about censorship. We're talking about neutrality and what it means for leaders to adapt. And this is kicked off by Jimmy Kimmel's recent cancellation.
Right. And things like this occur, and it brings a lot of folks together to say, okay, what does this mean? What do we know? What does the FCC say? What does this contract say? What does all this mean? And we go out to a variety of sources and say, okay, what does this mean? How might we make sense of this? And so we're just going to add a few little morsels, a few little considerations for folks as they lead their organizations. We're using this as a catapult, a catalyst for.
Yes, for a deeper conversation. Yeah. I think that this sparked a cultural event worth exploring as it bleeds into our organizations. And the broader question for us and for our listeners is, what do we do when the climate changes around us? What do leaders do as they're running organizations? And again, you may think, well, what does this have to do with my organization? And let me give you a solid example. And I know that you have one as well from your former life as a police chief. So in a particular city in the suburbs here in Illinois, the president, as many know, ordered flags to be lowered to half-mast as a result of the murder of Charlie Kirk. And
horrific despicable event.
Horrific. No
Yeah.
one, absolutely. I mean,
Ever.
that therein
In-
lies the conversation, the crux of this conversation about free speech. I didn't like a lot of the things that he said, but my God, we don't handle it by becoming violent and murdering
Ever.
someone. Yeah. So, yes, we denounce and condone all of it. What happened is the president ordered the
Of the United
flags.
States.
The president of the United States ordered the flags
Okay.
to be lowered to half mast. And the mayor of this particular city defied him. The
Okay.
mayor is a very far left liberal mayor and said, we are not lowering the flags for this purpose.
Can we pause there? Why
Yes.
does that part matter?
What, that he defied it?
No, that he's a left
Because he completely disagrees with the president.
And you see that in this statement kind of leading up to this in terms of context, that's germane.
Sure. Until what happens is the fire chief then says, okay, and raises the flags back up.
Okay.
And then some of the members of the fire department are saying, no, you need to lower them. And we have now
Tension.
Not only tension, but there is like the division between, so we're looking at a cultural division here, and it is a political division. Those who I would say are more right-leaning, conservative,
Okay.
are saying, do what the president says, lower the flags in honor of this influencer.
Okay.
And the mayor is saying absolutely not. And so the fire chief is now in the middle of his boss and those that he leads. And those that he lead, they're pissed off. So what does a leader do in that situation when you're having, this is the plate spinning, your stakeholders, right?
Sure.
So you have your boss and then you have your people. And there are certain hills that I know I would be willing to die on and have said, I will not do this because it violates my true north. I will not do this. Is this one of those things that, is this the hill that you die on? And do you listen to your boss or do you listen to your people?
I think you listen to both.
Okay.
Right? So let's break
you put
this
it at
down.
3/4?
No. I think there's some really interesting things to dive into here.
Yeah.
The president has authority to do certain things. It is not a mandate. In many ways, it's not a mandate. However, the fire chief in your description and the mayor also have authorities, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's just acknowledge that. These folks have some authorities. And in my understanding of this case you've just laid out, there is no mandate that you shall. It is that you are authorized to. So let's dive into, instead of the decision of lowering, let's dive into how the leader engages in the decision making. Because the tension is real and there is, I don't feel equipped to weigh in on that specific thing because I don't know the authorities that the fire chief had. I don't know the reasoning that he decided to raise it. And I don't really agree that the left-leaning, right-leaning is germane to the action. So if we just say, okay, we acknowledge that. Now let's talk about how do we dive into this, not only the paradox, but we dive into the leadership decision-making, the communication, and how the leader provides reasoning and context to why are we taking this certain stance.
Sure. And, in this particular example, real life example, the fire chief followed the orders of the mayor who said, we will not be lowering. Now, I actually think, and I love the idea of bringing people into the conversation, but regardless of, even when you do that, the more people you bring into the conversation, the more differing opinions you're going to have.
Which is okay.
What I loved, and a shout out to Governor Pritzker of Illinois, who said, I'll tell you what, we will absolutely lower the flags in honor of those affected by gun violence.
Right. So therein lies kind of the path that we were going to travel, because he's arguing, J.B. Pritzker, in that statement that you just described, is arguing that, okay, all people of gun violence, because it's inclusive of victims and those grieving their loss. And so that is a very interesting broadening of the behavior, the honoring, and the action. Because then what it does is it says that we're not going to focus on one person. It's not episodic.
That's right.
It is in the context of the overarching violence that is pervasive in our nation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you will still get someone, I'm sure, that is going to have a differing opinion and offer some backlash. But I like the communication of let's solve this problem together, because this isn't just one problem that we're having. We have, and even in our cities, as you know, as this trickles down, our cities are affected by gun violence. And as we know, Charlie Kirk was affected by gun violence.
Yes.
And all of it, again, is something that we should all denounce. So let's come together and find the thing that we agree on, which is this. There's no place for it, regardless of what side of the aisle that you're on. But it does require, and I don't even know if it requires, just a listening session, or, where the fire chief then gathers everyone around and says, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And what's a viable solution? To me, and this is where leaders push back a little bit and say, I don't have time. I don't have time to get consensus on everything. I'm not suggesting consensus. I'm suggesting a transparent thought process to what we're going to do, so you know where we're coming from, and let me get some input and what is the best outcome for everyone.
Right. And the best outcome is that people have voice. They can express themselves free of retribution, free of violence that would come toward them, because violence in this way is not contained with our political foe.
Right.
It will land at our feet. It will land at the feet of our compatriots, our folks that we are beside. It will land in our cities and in our neighborhoods. It's not contained to one group.
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is that leaders need to have the courage to be in space with people, to hear their grievance, to hear their opinion, that they are free to express themselves. And in this way, this leader, this fire chief, has an opportunity to say, okay, I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What created offense? What is it about this issue where you want to be heard? And giving voice does not mean giving vote. That in an organization is an essential leadership piece that I heard recently, underline, highlight, hashtag, or whatever's cool and hip now. Giving voice doesn't mean giving vote. So you wouldn't go out to your organization and say, I'm going to vote. How many of you want to lower the flag? How many of you want, right?
But I think that's what people are kind of looking for, is like, well, let's take a vote. Let's get a poll going here. And I think that's ineffective. I sometimes do. I think that's what people are looking for, is like just more of a concrete. You know why? Because I think in that case, it would absolve the leader, because then you can say, well, the majority voted to do this. And I think that is weak leadership.
You don't, it is to absolve the leader of the necessary courage to lead people.
Exactly.
There are times when it is appropriate to stand in. You and I have studied the Stoics, and there is incredible power in standing and bearing and tact and in silence. And sometimes in a personal space or in a professional space, silence is incredibly powerful, and silence is courageous. And so we've talked about that. There is, I think, a responsibility for any leader to recognize the gravity of the issue and to be in space to listen to people. Let me give you an example of one that didn't involve death. Okay. So as a chief of police in Tempe, I had occasion where it was a really tough time, and the union president was on vacation. 4th of July, uniformed police officers, and this is out in the open space, so it's not anything confidential, and I would never do that, give confidential information, but I want to give a story that didn't involve death, but it almost killed me, right? Because the POA president was on vacation overseas in Europe. In the middle of the night, he tweeted, "Dump Starbucks." Wind it back, we discovered that what had happened was uniformed police officers went to a Starbucks on a holiday. They walked into a barista that they know really well. They ordered their beverages. They were on a first name basis with this barista. She was lovely, I later discovered. There was a gentleman in the Starbucks suffering from some kind of mental health issue, not where they would have an interaction with him, the police officers, but he was energized around uniformed police officers. This barista said, hey, you guys, if you want to move over here, that would help ease the tension. They got their drinks, they were on duty in uniform in marked police cars, and they left. One of them felt so dishonored for reasons I still haven't really unwound or uncovered.
Because the barista said,
"Can you go over there?
Stay away from him." And when you
Thank you.
say that there was energy around, so obviously, call it like in plain language, he didn't want cops around. He didn't like cops.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't like cops.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So what?
So the barista just said,
hey, you guys, no,
get away from him.
Urge them to kind of move on.
Okay.
Well, they communicated that to the union president, that they were kicked out of Starbucks. He tweeted it. It became an international event. Starbucks handled it masterfully, beautifully. They acknowledged the difficulty. They acknowledged that they needed to bring in an entire team into Tempe. I met with them on the weekend, like 16 hours a day, to find out more about this, to hear directly from the barista. What ended up happening was it was already out in the environment. It was out in the environment of dump Starbucks, they hate cops.
Right.
It created an international event that was misunderstood, blown out of proportion from my perspective. And then we had to deal with damage control. People were supporting the police and saying that they will never drink Starbucks again.
Sure.
They could make their own commercial choice, their own consumer choice. Here's the thing. I chose not to be silent. I chose to be on ground, to meet with people, to get the context, to meet with the cop. Well, the cops wouldn't meet with me until their Monday because they were on their 3 days off. So I had 3 days with silence from my own cops because they were on their days off. And I worked with Starbucks to understand and to set the stage so the Starbucks team could meet with the officers to understand, to say if there was anything that made them feel less than or outcast or disrespected, Starbucks took ownership of all of it. And I had deep, deep respect for the manner in which they engaged. It was courageous. They didn't choose silence. They didn't choose comfort. And then I was able to message from my seat what my finding was, to not cast aside the officers or condemn them, but communicate internally with the organization and then externally into society. That was a lesson I will never forget because it was so difficult and so polarizing.
Yeah. There's a couple things that I really want to pull out of there. Number one, let's talk about that barista for just one moment.
Lily, she was lovely.
Okay, so in my opinion, in my view, she exhibited a leadership that like she's she may be a barista, she's making the coffee, but that's her store, right?
Oh.
She sees she obviously is friendly with these cops who come in, and yet she sees an individual who doesn't, for some reason, like the police, makes him uncomfortable. So she does not ask those police officers to leave. Instead, she just says, right? Is that correct? Is that factual?
That's my recollection, yes.
Okay. Regardless, it was like, hey, she already knows that she's got the relationship. She's trying to diffuse the situation in her store on her watch. She's trying to get the best possible outcome. Hey, just give this guy some space. So regardless of whether the words she used were, maybe step outside until he calms down, whatever it may be. That's a leadership moment for a barista. Where is a failure of leadership? Is that union president that tweeted out dump Starbucks because, and I hope you're listening, because that is what incited this event that didn't have to be that way. First of all, he already knows how they've been treated every single time they go in there.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so that is lack of leadership, in a position of leadership, by the way, as a union president, to incite and truly make something so much bigger than it actually was. So I think that needs to be called out as well.
Sure. And I think as we kind of do a postmortem looking back, I don't think there are many people that would disagree with you. In fact, I think most people would say, ooh, that's an example. Don't put something out broadly when you don't have all the facts. And I really think it was a point of embarrassment.
Yeah.
It was a point of embarrassment and reactivity. Here's the thing. It was, to me, a symbol from all the folks that reacted to this, that they had stored so many grievances over time that any kind of spark, any kind of notion, nibble of disrespect created an explosion. It was a powder keg based on how they were feeling. Now, remember this. This cohort was the cohort that joined policing, that was inspired after the watershed moment of 9/11. They were so inspired and moved to do something different. Many of them, including this union president, left his very comfortable office job and joined policing. That is admirable. However, there are folks in that cohort that were so energized by this atrocity that drove them into public service. Their entire career, they'd been the heroes. They'd been admired and respected and never questioned. And when they were questioned in this era, they did not have the adaptive way of dealing with being questioned. They took it immediately as a grievance and disrespect. And that was difficult. So
an injustice collector.
Right.
And see, then that puts you, that injustice collector, and then that bold statement to say dump Starbucks, then now that puts you in the middle as the leader of the organization, because now your cops are divided. On one hand, you have some cops that are like, okay, so what? She asked them to, like that makes sense, because we're always looking to diffuse a situation. That's what our job is. So it puts you in the situation, much like this fire chief in this situation. Do I raise the flag? Do I lower the flag? And so there are moments in time where we as leaders have to remain neutral, but this is another event where you have to keep your stakeholders happy, and what you say matters because you speak on behalf of the organization and behalf of police, and turning your back on them, really knowing that that cop is the one who incited everything. So this is the crux of a leader, and why heavy is the head who wears the crown.
Word. And what's fascinating, I'm not even sure I've described this for you, is later these folks asserted, the cops asserted they weren't really on duty. And I said, well, you're in a squad car and in uniform. How can you assert that you weren't on duty and any communication you had was protected because it wasn't on duty? If you had slipped getting your Frappuccino and broken your elbow, would you have expected workers' comp protections? They said, well, yeah. One of them said, yeah, I would. Well, then you're on duty. Totally. There was this really interesting psychological kind of reworking and this very interesting foundation in which they were resting that it was odd. It was an odd manipulation of just the angst around this. So I took it as this is about something bigger than feeling dishonored in this moment, episodic, right? In this episode, this incident, and it was more reflective of how they were feeling in carrying out the noble work of policing.
Sure.
So there's something bigger and deeper.
Well, there's always something bigger and deeper. And I guess that's why we decided to tackle this really hard conversation, because this is, you're being put in that position as a leader, and and then you then either adapt or capitulate as the leader. And I think what we need to find out, what we need to realize here is that adaptation is not capitulation. You can say, we understood what Starbucks did in that moment, and that's not capitulation, but adapting to the situation, adapting the way I think Governor Pritzker did, to say, you know what, we will lower the flag on behalf of all gun violence victims. Now, what does that say about the leadership of the broadcast company that took Kimmel off the air? If you violated somehow a contract, which you got your hands on the contract and saw that there were only 7 words Jimmy Kimmel couldn't say.
I'm not a legal person. I'm not a contract attorney, although I know some. I'm not sure. Maybe they just use it as an excuse. Maybe it was a decision to quiet him. Maybe it was a business decision so this merger could be carried out. We don't know. We don't know.
Either way, it's putting the pressure from the top, and we've already heard it several weeks ago. President Trump did say Jimmy Kimmel is next. That was
Okay.
a kind of a veiled threat laid down, and then the FCC pounced the minute he said something. So now you have the broadcast company in the middle of in all of these situations. A leader is in the middle
Yeah.
of something where they have to make a decision, and to either fall in line with those they serve, or represent their people. And it's a tough position to be in. There's no right answer here. I don't have the answer, but I do know that there are times when a leader cannot remain neutral, that they must take a stand, even if it means losing their job.
Yes. And so much of this is, how do we address broader social issues, right? And how do we communicate kind of the path that we're going to take forward, to move forward and travel forward in?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I said that right. But irrespective of one's standing on this issue, whether it's silencing a critic or honoring various folks, you and I both know, as leaders in organizations, one of the most difficult times is how we choose to honor someone, because there are stories of many where they will feel dishonored because they were not otherwise honored. And so there is a very purposeful, intentional consideration that has to be made in even what might be the most innocuous type of decision, the lowering of a flag.
Right. Yeah.
It is
seemingly innocuous, but
right.
not to that organization.
Could be divisive.
Very divisive for the organization. So I think that the takeaway here is truly about strategic leadership.
Yes.
And do I act, or do I not act? I mean, do I confront this issue? Or sometimes, as you mentioned, sometimes it's better to stay silent and let things play out. But other times you have to take a stand. But when you are you quiet because that's strategic, or are you quiet because you are scared? Because you are afraid to upset people. And there is a big difference between the two.
We can all see it. Every one of us can see it. And bearing is one of the foundational principles on which leaders need to focus. They stand in bearing, how we engage, right? So the real urging here is to give consideration to how we give voice as leaders, how we stand up, how we step up, how we communicate. Do we communicate verbally? Do we stay silent? That is something that we are urging leaders to consider, because this is another polarizing issue potentially in our society.
Yeah.
That leaders, we can't just go, oh, that's happening somewhere else.
Yep.
Because the international event lands at our feet.
The
national event comes to a small town suburb.
Yeah, I think the takeaway for leaders is it's not about avoiding controversy. It's about knowing when to hold the line and when to adapt a playbook for a better outcome. And in the middle of it all, talking, communicating with your people and listening. And even in these situations and topics where emotions run high, because that's what this is. It's emotional. It's people have this attachment to their identities. And that's unfortunately where we are in the political spectrum right now is, I identify as this, therefore I fall on this side of the aisle or this issue. And leaders have to take all of it and they have to make the decision that is best for the organization. But I like your idea of just communicating with everyone. Here's what I'm thinking. What input do you have for me? And then make a decision that is best for your people.
And giving voice to people helps organizations. It advances organizations because it's on a basis of trust and respect for people. Voice is not vote.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. And I heard that from a chief just a week or so ago, and it reinforced it to me and brought it to the forefront of my mind to give kind of understanding. Right.
Yeah. And not to belabor this, but it does remind me of actually when I was speaking to the sheriffs in California that you invited me to, and one gentleman stood up, an undersheriff, and said, when I get buy-in from everyone and then do make a decision, it seems like more people are mad, and because you've got the buy-in, but then you did something different, you know? And I said, well, that therein lies, once again, voice is not vote. And that really brings it back to that is
Sure.
you get the input, but you still have to make a decision that's probably going to upset someone. That's what leadership is.
There's a safe thing. You say it all the time. If you want to be safe and free of condemnation, don't do shit. Don't do a damn thing. Don't do anything.
Yeah. And certainly don't enter into a leadership position because
And do not silence the critic. The
right.
critics this is the foundation of our democracy. If satire and discourse and disagreement. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
And don't shoot them.
Right. So ever resort to violence. Ever resort to violence. It's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And now, okay, so we've said a lot here, and we are sitting on the 42nd floor here looking out on this beautiful place, right? And we are about to go into the arena, the stadium, Soldier Field. They're playing my sister's favorite team. So I'm a little sad she's not here, the Dallas Cowboys. And, we're giving shout out to Ted. But we are going to take a stand today.
We are. We're going to pick a side.
I've picked a side already.
Yeah.
I'm not fully informed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel I'm fully informed, but I'm fucking all Bears.
Yeah, me too.
Now, I root for the Cowboys because of my sister when they're not playing the Bears. But this is real.
You've taken a hard leadership line. I'm really proud of you. That's courageous of you to do.
Right. And I won't hate the Cowboys. I won't wish them ill, but I wish them defeat.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be a decisive victory.
Yeah. By the time this podcast drops, we will have learned who won. But Vegas is giving the spread to the Bears today, just so you know, by 1 point.
There. You shit me?
I don't make stuff up when it comes to sports.
You make so much stuff up when it comes to sports. Wow.
I actually don't know what I'm talking about, but I swear
Did you look
I
it up?
heard that. No, I heard that this morning on the news. I heard it on the news this morning. No, so
what news?
WGN Chicago. Best news ever.
Okay.
WGN Chicago.
Okay, good to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, bunnies, there's a lot to consider here.
So much.
And one of the biggest urgings is look out into the environment, understand the environment, look within self, and figure out what you're going to do when it comes to you. Because as my dad, Barton McCrae Moir, used to say, if you're ready, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So this urging on the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast is, hey, and in this conversation, which you've enriched me as always, it's like, hey, give it some thought. What would you do?
I love it. I love it. That's it for today's episode of the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. Ted Madden produces the podcast, and the song you're about to hear was written by my talented and accomplished son, Jake Ziman, and his friends, Fabian and Zoe. If you like the podcast, please subscribe. Please like it. Please review it. Please share it with people. Share it with everyone you know. If you don't like it, move along. There's nothing more to see here. Keep filling your bunnies and keep adding substance to others. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Go Bears. Go Bears.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you've lost your why? Have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny. Tired and scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me to fight the hollow bunny? And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all. And I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger, failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. If you're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. And we all tough on the outside but